Srila Prabhupada's guru, who, by the way, he didn't have as much association as I did, but he still was enamored. His guru asked him, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, asked some of his disciples, the top ones, in 1941 to go to London and start something. And they were the top devotees, sannyasis. And they came, they met one woman, but then they went back. And so because Bhaktisiddhanta asked Prabhupada in the first meeting, at first he didn't want to go, but then his friend took him to his guru, and he was enamored. But he was part of the Gandhi movement. And so the Gandhi movement was very popular at the time, and he wasn't sure if he was going to do anything spiritual per se, but when he met his guru, like I met my guru, I immediately resonated and fell in love. And his guru asked, he said, "This boy is listening so nicely, he doesn't go away, and so I'd like him to take this to the Western countries." So this was in 1934, I think. And he took that to heart, my guru, and he brought it to the West. And we'll tell that maybe too. But he had hardship at the beginning. He didn't know anybody, but he was determined. He even had a heart stroke. Most people would have gone back to India. And he came and planted these seeds, and now we took these seeds. And so he asked, instead of 3 celibate renunciate, he asked 3 married couples to go to England. And 1 baby. So the 7 of us came, decided we would like to go to England. I was here previously, in 1958. My father so kindly facilitated a trip to Europe with my best friend. And so we came to England. We went to Berkshire. We went to a public school. I saw the Goons before Monty Python. I became an Anglophile. So, since we were coming again, the Beatles were singing messages that young people were taking, along with my friend Bob Dylan. I was a friend with Bob Dylan, and we came to the conclusion, he was going with Joan Baez, and she was lapping up the political rhetoric, and he was in the corner nervous, and I went over to him, and he said, "Hey, man," because he remembered me, and we came to the mutual conclusion that we could reach people's hearts more with song and story than political rhetoric, because they resist. So we decided that if we're going to England, we should meet the Beatles. Who would do this unless they already had a strong belief system? 6 months. So we decided we'd go, but we only had $1,000 at the time. And then Swamiji gave us $50 more from someplace. He pulled it out like a magician in a hat. I don't know where he had it. He pulls out $50, so we had $1,050. So we went on the airline via Reykjavik. It was Icelandic Airlines, less fares. But we landed in Amsterdam instead of London because we didn't have a return ticket and we didn't have enough money for 7 of us. And even then, the officials were somewhat stroppy. And because we didn't know the word stroppy then, but we knew what political correctness is, we knew what restriction is, we knew what it feels like to be at a border feeling like a criminal even if you're not. So Samarshanda and Malati and baby Saraswati went first, and they said, "Okay, we have $1,050. Okay, come in." Then they sent 1,050, the bank took a cut, back to myself in Amsterdam, and myself in Jamuna came. We have $1,045. Okay, come on. And then we sent it to Mukunda. Well, we only had two names. One was a Dr. Coley, who we didn't know, but it was way out in Herne Hill. And so we went out there, and he was nice, and there was an extra annex to his house. And so we started chanting and inviting people, and slowly some people were coming, but it was way out in Herne Hill. And we thought we had to get to the center of town, even though we never saw the center of town, but we could see it was somewhat sedate. And we still wanted to meet the Beatles, and this is way in the suburbs. We had another name, Tom Drieberg, Member of Parliament. He was a friend of Allen Ginsberg, but we didn't meet him yet. So, slowly, we went to the center of town, and there was an underground newspaper called International Times. That's the real IT. And they embraced us. London at the time was really following the sensibility of San Francisco, which was search. But it was even nicer here because it was smaller. So everybody knew each other. There was Miles, who had the metaphysical bookstore, and Hoppy, who was doing the videos. And then you could meet the Rolling Stones, possibly. And then everybody knew each other in the community. So when we met the people from International Times, they said they're moving to another building. It was right in this area, High Holborn. And they're moving to Endell Street, and there's a building on Betterton Street, 22 Betterton Street. So they said, go ask the owner if you can live there. And his name was Nigel Samuels of the Samuel Jewelry fortune. But he was part of the underground. He was poo-pooing the establishment. Of course, he didn't poo-poo his inheritance. But he lived in a big penthouse on Portsmouth Square. You could see 360 degrees of London. And Mukunda and Samarshunda said, Gurudas, you do the talking. They did that a lot. So we come upon this lift, and it opens up into this penthouse, and I see a man, he looks like Oscar Wilde. He was emaciated and poetic looking. You know, Oscar Wilde said some beautiful things. You can't waste anything but time. Be yourself, everyone else is taken. You know, some very nice little... So I did the talking, and he said, yes, I have a place and you can move in. So it was really good. Samarshunda rented this red pickup truck with a crank. It had a crank. You had to crank the engine sometime. But it was our vehicle, and it was really good. And so we all piled in the back. It had a cargo space. And we went to our new digs at Betterton Street. There was no hot water and no heat. And when I tell the extolling virtues of how we did this, some of the devotees said, but Gurudas, you didn't say that there was no heat in. But you know, when you're doing devotion for Krishna, all of this is becoming a caress. It's just, you just do it. And we were very austere, but we just did it. On the top floor was Michael X, the black Muslims. The Krishna conscious magic story is stranger than fiction. Now, again, they said, it's not compatible that the black Muslims and the Krishna conscious are in the same building. And they said, Gurudas, you do the talking. Well, this was okay because, as I mentioned to our friend Barnaby, that I was in the civil rights movement. And so I had a chance to work with Martin Luther King. And we were the young rebels, Stokely Carmichael, Julian Bond. But I had heard Malcolm X speak. I heard him speak many times. One time, he usually did it in front of what's called the African bookstore, but he was such a powerful speaker. He was really powerful. But one time, we're in the Apollo Theater in Harlem, and he comes out, and it was surprised. No one expected him. And he comes out through the curtain and says, the white man's the devil. And then he made the case. I felt like hitting myself upside the head because he was so powerful. And I was with my best friend who was a warlord, black body. And everybody's looking. I could feel the eyes boring in the back of my head, people hating me. And my friend, the warlord, says, it's all right. You ain't white. And I said, well, you can think that, but these folks don't know that. So Malcolm X was a very powerful speaker. So because Michael X was the branch here, Gurudas, you do the talking. So I just said, hey, brother, we're going to do this, and we need the whole house. Can you find another crib, another place to? And he did. And we actually were friends, so much so that the police came and planted some contraband in his house. Within a few minutes, they said, and they found it in this closet. So Michael X says, Gurudas, you take photographs, because I was the photographer. Come to my house and photograph. So I did. And in this house was babies, and it was really crowded, and there was posters and Malcolm X. And so by photographing, we actually proved in the court that it would be pretty hard to find this contraband. You'd have to go through babies and all of this in such a short time. And he won the case. So now we had a temple, and we made an altar room, and we, myself and Jamuna and Janaki and Mukunda lived on one floor, separated, and Malati lived in a box, a refrigerator box in the ground floor. And we made a little window for the box. And then when we became friends with George Harrison, he used to do the Monty Python little thing. I was so poor, I slept on the floor. Oh, you had a floor? But then it was, I was so poor, I slept in the box. Oh, you had a box? Well, we did have a box with Malati in it. But we still hadn't met the Beatles.